I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tim. Minutes, October 25th. Questions, comments?
move approval is written.
Motion made, seconded, approved minutes. All those in favor? Old business. Just like to say the gazebo is done, as everybody pretty well knows. You know, thanks to the Public Works Department and Tom Bowden, who volunteered his time. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Is that where you get the bump on the head,
That's
Tom?
exactly what I got the bump on the
See,
head.
he should be compensated for that. This is just not right.
Uh-oh.
Next on the agenda, Holland Strong Tennis Court Project, and like to thank you, Debbie, for all the stuff you have been doing too, in this presentation here. Anybody got any questions to Debbie on this, or would you like to say anything more, Deb, or anybody?
I just don't know if you want me to kind of talk
You
about what
can.
my request is,
Yeah.
for people who might not be here.
Yes, you have to ask in order for us.
Exactly, yes.
Yes.
So as you know, I created the Holland Strong Community Foundation in memory of my son who was lost at sea, and we've been doing scholarships for years, and we are also raising money to work on a current project of renovating the athletic complex at the high school. We broke it down into phases. We chose the tennis courts first for a few reasons. They were unusable, they're a lifelong sport for folks, and they're very visible as you drive by on Route 4. They're something that the communities can use, as well as students, adult education, so a lot of use for everybody. So we've been working hard at reaching out to folks, trying to find grant opportunities, and one presented itself, the Land and Water Conservation Grant. So it's actually RSU 73 who's eligible for the grant. So they, working along with me, Mark Keller and I worked a couple summers ago on the grant, and we've received tentative approval. It's a 50-50 grant match, so we have to have either cash donations, labor donations, whatever. For each dollar we get of that, we can get $1. So the current status of the project, the estimated budget is around $409,000. And so we need to commit a couple $100,000 in in-kind work. So we have to date $212,000 that we need to either have committed or pending approval. And we have about 61% of that committed, either by Holland Strong Foundation has funds to put towards it, or folks who are looking to provide some of the labor for free or reduced cost on some of the goods, the paint, you know, the gravel, those types of things. For the vendors, that will have to go out to official bid once we have a project agreement. So that will be part of the bid process, is what would you give us for an estimate of what this would cost, and then what would you offer in in-kind donations to help us achieve this goal. So we're reaching out to each of the 3 towns of the RSU 73 community, asking for support of the town highway crews to help keep the cost of the most expensive piece, which is the site work, down, to have some help from the highway crews during about 2 to 3 weeks of the project once it starts, to remove the old lights that are there. There's no electricity there, but to remove the old lights, take the old tar out, and then help with whoever the contractor is, taking out the old soil and bringing in the new gravel for the courts. So the current estimate of that in-kind labor would be around $27,000, shared between the 3 towns. So it's not 27 from each town, so that work of in-kind labor amongst the 3 towns, if they all shared it together, would be about $27,000. So we're here tonight asking for the Selectmen's support from Jay as part of that tri-town commitment to the overall project between RSU 73 and the Holland Strong Community Foundation and all the other partners that will make this happen when it finally does.
In my mind, and I think it's great, you know, I think it's good for RSU 73. I think it's great for the whole area, young and old. You know, we have a tennis team here, and it's like having a football team, they don't have a field to play on,
Right.
you know, so
Yep.
that's me, I don't know what anybody else has on that.
A good thing, we've been waiting a long time, I think, to do something with those courts. The way everything changed a number of years back, that was kind of backburning some, so it's a pretty good idea to come to the forefront, found a way to make it happen.
I have a question. The funds that we're getting to the ARPA, would that be able to be, and I'm only asking this because, you know, the next item on the agenda is the shortages of our public works staff, which we're asking them here again to do something.
Mhm.
So, you know, we're already hearing how stressed they are, and then we're gonna say, okay, now we're gonna do this for them. So I'm concerned that we take care of the staff at the public works.
Right, so the ARPA funds, possibly that could be used for that. The complication with that piece would be that if you used ARPA funds for that, you'd be giving ARPA funds to another entity, and then you have to track the funds through that entity. But the board does have discretion over the recreational reserve account, the tower fund, which would be a
Okay.
much cleaner way that if you wanted to just
Okay.
do a donation fund, that would be a lot easier than doing the ARPA funds for that.
Okay.
And I can get you the balance of what that account is, but there's money there that you could use for that purpose if you wanted to.
And have we talked to John?
Yeah, and so John's been part of the conversations,
Good.
initially with Deb and then with the other towns, talking about how this would work. The good thing about this project and how it could be done by the Public Works crew is in talking with the, one of the contractors that would be willing to bid on it, there's a possibility that we could do some of the work, not necessarily when they're there, like trucking out the material can be done ahead of time on
Right.
whatever schedule our public works crew
Okay.
have. So if they have a day, you know, that they know that they can do it and it doesn't interfere with stuff, they could do some trucking that day, or bringing material in and stockpiling it somewhere so that there's access to it. So we're hoping that if it does work, there would be some flexibility on being able to do it on their schedule, a lot of it,
If not,
instead
they
of
have to
just
work
having.
overtime, is what he's thinking, if they can't.
Well, that would be like even before the contractor even gets here, that they can truck the material out and, you know, then bring material in and stockpile it somewhere before they even get on site to start doing construction.
Okay.
So if we can do that over, you know, an extended period of time, whenever it fits in our schedule, it makes it that much easier to.
I just want to be sensitive.
And we've
to
talked
that.
about, as far as like not scheduling it around Memorial Day, when everybody's getting ready with the cemeteries and the ball
Right,
fields and all
right.
of that, that there has to be some flexibility as
Yeah.
far as that. So Deb's talked to the contractors, you know, with that idea in mind.
Mhm. And you are putting out all the jobs to bid?
Yes,
For the
it's
project.
required with the federal grant, yes.
Yeah, I thought you had to, okay.
So one other piece that's kind of come to light since we did this last week, Livermore was talking with MMA about it and was concerned about, like towns doing work on private property. And the RSU is not private, it's a public entity, so they didn't have a problem with that. They did think though that the in-kind donation should be approved by the governing body, not by the legislative body, so town meeting. So Deb and, I had asked her to check and see whether this was a commitment that they needed before they put the application in, because she's planning to submit that in December?
We're hoping the next round will be December, so we've received approval at the state level. So the next step is to go to the national parks, and they have grant cycles 3 times a year, and typically there's one in December. My contact at the state hasn't had confirmation of whether there'll be one in December, but we have enough committed match. So as soon as that national grant cycle opens up, December or January, whatever, that next round when they're ready, he is going to submit that to the next level. So we wanted to have more than half of it committed. So it doesn't prevent us from continuing to do the work, but it does move us forward to the next step to get final approval. And once we get a project agreement, then you can start any in-kind work. So the pre-stuff that you're talking about, we could start that once we have a project agreement.
So my concern was whether we needed
April,
to have a
right?
special town meeting like now, or
Right.
whether we could have it on the April
April
town
warrant,
meeting, but it
right.
sounds like the April town warrant would work.
Will
so.
work, okay. Good, thank you for the answers.
Anybody else got any questions or comments? Or-
I'd like to make a motion if I can. I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommend to the town that we move forward with donating resources and manpower to the Holland Strong Tennis Court project.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
It's the best we can do for you tonight.
Thank you. Hey, it's another step, you know,
Yeah.
every little baby step helps, so.
Well, I mean, I see the project's gonna be like 2 weeks. I don't think it's gonna extend for 3 months, the project. So I see it coming in and going, and if we can get it all coordinated together, all the better for the whole community.
Yeah, they want to spend at least time here because they gotta go to the next project.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Summer projects are this big of a window, right?
Very short window, that is
Yes,
for sure.
short window.
You're
Well,
more
thank
than
you.
welcome to
Yes, thank
stay,
you.
but you don't have to.
I haven't had supper.
There you go.
As long
Thank
as
you
you're okay
very
with
much.
excusing us. Mark.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all, I appreciate the support.
Thanks,
We'll keep
TJ.
Shiloh posted as we move on to any next steps. Thank you.
Well, we didn't let TJ say something. You should-
Well, you guys didn't want to hear me, huh?
Goodbye.
People hear me enough.
Goodbye.
See you guys, thank you.
Next on the agenda are the update on the public works hiring.
Okay, so we've hired one new employee, started last week. We have at least one interview later this week, so hoping for a second employee will be hired. We had actually made 2 offers originally, and then one of them had to decline because when he looked at the financial, it just didn't work for him, so. So until we had the interviews this week, my spiel to you tonight was going to be that we have a backup plan, which is using our employees at the transfer station. Our full-time employee already has a truck route for plowing anyways, but it's usually with one of the smaller trucks. He's going to now be in one of the bigger trucks and have a different plow route. And then our part-time employee at the transfer station will be in the smaller truck and will also have a plow route. But what that means is there may be times when it's storming or we're doing winter cleanup that the transfer station will be cleaned, you know, without much notice because we're not gonna have employees to staff it, so. And the weight of cleaning the roads versus keeping the transfer station open for that period of time is.
We gotta make sure the public knows that that may happen.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons it's on the
Yeah,
agenda.
okay.
Was to start having
It's-
that conversation so it gets out there and.
It's just the Public Works Department to do all the roads in the town, to clear
Yes.
the roads, so we
Yeah.
don't hire outside help to do that. We can't do that.
No, we have a couple people, either retired employees or one that used to work for the state, that we have on like a call list, an emergency call list that John and Billy in Livermore Falls set it up really last year as a kind of an answer to COVID. If,
Right.
you know, our employees were sick, what do you do? Because we still
Right,
have to
right.
plow. So we got a list of people that are not, they don't want to be part-time employees, they don't want to be full-time
Right, but
employees,
they'll help
but in
out.
an emergency, if you call them, they will come. They're all CDL drivers, they're in our drug testing pool, so they've been,
Right.
gone through all of that, so they're legal to drive for us. So that, we do have that, but we've asked them if they all wanted a part-time winter job, and
No.
they didn't really want to
I know,
commit to that
right.
much. and,
Right.
You know, but
But
it's great that they're
there's-
willing to be there in an
pitch in if
emergency
something happens,
situation.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because COVID's still there.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking if we get down another person, we're gonna.
Exactly.
It's not about shutting down the transportation.
right, it's shutting down all the roads.
Right.
So everybody stay home today. No.
Yeah, right?
So,
Okay.
Anything else?
that's all I got on that one.
Next, the agenda, electric fence at the rec area. Rob?
Yes, so a few years ago, we planted a couple hundred, I think about 200 hybrid American Chinese chestnut trees up in the rec. We did it with middle school and high school students. And we have kind of 2 different plots of them up there. And they're doing okay. We've probably lost a little less than half of them. And the biggest problem we're having, the purpose for planting them, it's an American Chestnut Foundation project. And what the American Chestnut Foundation did is they crossed American and Chinese chestnuts, because the American chestnut used to be the mast-producing tree in the eastern U.S. Some people used to call them the redwoods of the East. They're 100 feet tall and just beautiful, beautiful trees. And the chestnut blight that got imported in pretty much wiped them out. And so what they've done is they've crossed American chestnuts with the Chinese chestnuts. And then the offspring, they keep back crossing with American chestnuts. So these trees are 15/16 American chestnuts genetically and 1/16 Chinese. And the hope is that there's enough of the genetics there from the Chinese chestnut to give them the blight resistance that they need, but still have the majority of the features of an American chestnut. The Chinese chestnuts don't get anywhere near as big. So that's kind of what the project is about. And all these kinds of things, the educational value far exceeds the success of the project, right? This is really all about teaching kids and giving them some stuff where they can learn about genetics and learn about diseases and invasive species. It just hits a lot of buttons when it comes to educational value. So anyway, the project's been going. Every year I'm taking groups of kids up there. We're keeping them weeded. We keep them mowed. The folks on the rec committee, we have the mower up there, and they keep the trails mowed really nice. We keep the chestnuts mowed down. I need the kids to help me, because you got to kind of get in there and weed right in around the trees. You can't get in that close with the mower. So it's been an ongoing project, but the biggest issue is the deer browsing. And that rec area is just an absolutely beautiful piece of property. Randy Easter and Don LeClaire and all the people on the rec committee between French Falls and the rec area just do a tremendous, tremendous job. If you haven't had a chance to go walk up there,
Beautiful.
It's just beautiful. So anyway, I was talking with some folks about what's the best way to handle this deer browsing situation, and the best response I got was electric fence. And it kind of trains the deer to stay away. They can jump over just about any fence you put up. So the electric one's more about they associate it with a little shock, and that's the best strategy. And it just so happens this summer, I had a person give me a solar-powered electric fence charger. I think it was about $250 worth of fence charger. So I have that, and I talked to Shiloh about using it, and she communicated with the insurance company and whatnot. And so one of the things is we would need to make sure that I would donate the fence charger to the town, because it needs to be owned by the town, and because it's yours, and then your insurance company could cover it. I do need to buy a little more stuff. I need a replacement battery for the charger, and some stakes. I have the wire and the grounding stake, and that stuff came with it. So we need to buy a few supplies, and if we could do that from the rec committee, then all the stuff would be owned by the town, and that answers that issue too. And anyway, yeah, then we put it up. Given the timeline right now, they may be covered in snow, so it may be a springtime project, which would hopefully would help it work. But that's basically what it's about, and there are 2 plots of the trees. We put the fence around one and see how that worked, and maybe if that worked, we'd try and figure out something on the other one, and see how they do. So, yeah, that's what I'm here for. Can we have some permission to put the fence up, and perhaps some funding to help with some of the stakes and whatnot?
Are you asking for the 400, is that what you would like?
What did I? put on the budget?
No, it's the
No, that's
100.
completed,
That's
yes.
that's the total
That's the
cost
total
that we
with
would
what-
be
what
insuring
we're
it for.
donating?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
so
fine.
really it's about $100.
So
and-
he had fence posts,
And that was at
post
$1.99 a
insulators,
post, and I saw them at
everything.
Martin's yesterday for 89 cents. So, it might actually come in under.
Anybody got any questions? Yes.
What kind of posts are you, cedar?
They're just the fiberglass, they're actually,
Fiberglass, okay.
yeah, and they're
Okay.
just like the,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I had
driveway
horses.
stakes.
Yeah,
People put them up for markers.
Yeah.
It's just a fiberglass, and it has a little, the farmer's union, you can get a little connector and run the wire through it. It's what any farmer would use on
Now,
their,
I
around
have
their
one other
house.
question, follow-up.
Mhm.
When do the deer start browsing?
They browse all the time.
All the time?
So, yeah, and I'm gonna do a little more,
So, I mean, you might wanna put them up now.
true, and that's something I gotta
You may
look
not
into
have
some
any
more.
trees to
Right.
take care of, if you don't.
True. And that's something I would talk to the folks that have been helping me with the project about. Is that something you wanna do in the winter? Yeah, I don't have the answer to that yet.
Well, the
but-
ground's not frozen yet, so
No.
this is the
Yeah.
time, right?
And those stakes, the fiberglass ones, they go in the ground relatively
Yeah.
easy. You get a lug nut off of a car, put it on the top, and you can tap, tap, tap.
Oh, yeah.
And you won't split the
Yep.
fibers.
That's a good-
And you can send them down, well, until you hit a rock.
Mhm.
But they work tremendous. Kept our horses in the playpen, if you will,
Yeah.
so it works really good.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, motions?
I can make a motion that we donate $100 from the recreation fund to help support this project. We're all started, and so I'd like to see it finished.
Motion made and seconded for $100 be taken out of the recreation tower fund.
I would assume that also means we have permission to put the fence in, because that's another thing we need is.
and you have to accept his donation of the
Yes.
other materials so that it's town.
Start over, Gary.
So you want just add all of those.
Accept his donation and to grant his request to.
Motion made and seconded still. All those in favor?
Thanks, Rob.
Thank
very
you,
much.
Rob.
And just on a side note, I had a conversation with Steve Gettle. We happened to be coming out of the same stand of woods after deer hunting one afternoon last week. And so we're gonna coordinate, he's marked the property line between the rec and the school. And my natural resources class and I actually finished squaring off the school property line. So I'm hoping to involve my Envirothon team, my AP Environmental Science class, and my Natural Resources class to coordinate with Steve as they mark the timber and whatnot, and so we can get as much educational value out of that harvest that's gonna happen up there. But that project is going forward, so it's a great opportunity to get kids out in the woods and doing some stuff.
Thank you, Rob.
So you're getting the checks up.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, for sure.
Keep your pancakes tight.
Thank you very much.
Just as a side note about that, they are harvesting on the,
RSU section.
no,
East J Law.
East J Law,
East
thank
J
you.
Law. Oh,
That's a
okay.
lot.
They have started
They've
that already?
started that now, so if anybody wants to go out and see anything, or,
I live right next door to that lot, and it looks like they're doing a tremendous job. Yeah.
I did see Justin at the polls the other day, and he talked about having kind of an open house type thing over there, that the board could come out, the public could come out and kind of see what type of harvest is going on and what's happening. So, depending on the schedule, we'll get that figured out.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Rob.
Next on the agenda, fire department cost recovery fees and contract. So the two different motions that we do. Any questions on either one? That's basically the ones we said follow ourselves. Yes, Garrett.
I don't have any issues regarding the schedule of billing for the requested use of our equipment for those incidents where we need to use them. The only problem I have is with this contract recovery thing. My inclination is to have the fire department do the billing for the insurance rather than to outsource it. And one of the reasons is because it says under number 5, client acknowledgement, the ultimate responsibility for all claims submitted is the client, and the client shall remain responsible for subsequent errors and corrections within. If we're gonna be doing all the work, we should be getting all the funds.
I believe when you say all the work, basically what we're going to
Just
do
file
is
a
send
claim.
in the police department report to cost recovery person, then they run with everything.
Why couldn't the chief of the fire department get the information from the police department and file a claim themselves? I mean, I'm thinking if you can recover $1,000, you're giving $200 for them to just do the filing for you.
Well, he would not have the time to sit there, follow up on the administrative, that alone. The idea is to get him out of having to do all this too, and to be able to recoup some of the funds. You're asking for the chief to do the paperwork and do the follow-up with the insurance company?
As far as I know, all they have to do is file a report with the insurance company. The insurance companies usually handle it quite expeditiously, and
Have you ever gotten in a car accident?
yes, I have.
Sorry, I know of you. I mean, I had to deal with them once, and it was an ongoing 4-month event. Back and forth, back and forth.
Well, I know when a car accident is a little bit different, because a car accident, they gotta determine liability and non-liability, or no, all we're asking for is to reimburse for the expenses that we utilize to assist in that accident.
The insurance company, though, when the claim goes from this company, they still have the right to go back and forth.
Yes, and
Yeah,
my
they do.
understanding is they do sometimes.
Yeah, right.
But I don't think it's,
All the
yeah, I
other
don't think it's
towns
as
basically are using
straightforward.
this same.
Right, right.
Nobody does it the way I suggest.
No, I know of.
Okay.
I'm not saying there isn't one out
Yeah,
there somewhere,
Right.
but
Maybe they have enough funds to have that.
You know, maybe if they do
Chief
their
said
own,
that.
like they have an ambulance service and do their own ambulance
Yeah.
billing, maybe
Right.
they would do this as
Do
part
this
of
too.
that, but I don't,
I don't know that the chief would have additional.
yeah,
funds
we
to
don't
do that.
have the resources to do it ourselves.
Be nice, if we did, but we don't.
Well, if you get 100% recovery, you could take 10%, 20% and pay that person to do it. But that's what you're expecting to pay, outsource this to somebody else to do it. You think that's the best way to do it? Okay.
The company is based on the expertise to do that for towns, so that's what they've built their business on, I think. We're
And they have
entrusting them
a-
to be good at what they do.
Once we have it up and going, the chief can come in and show you too, but when we met with them before, they kind of walked us through their system that they have. They have an online system that you can actually get in and see where your claims are, what the status is. You
You're
know,
not left out in the dark.
how many people have handled it, like it's been submitted, somebody reviewed it, it went to the insurance company, their response, if it goes back and forth, you can see all of that in the claims portion, so we can have a kind of,
Well, all I know is what I saw here.
Yeah.
I didn't have the background information
Yeah.
that you have there.
yeah.
That knowledge.
I just don't think that the insurance claim is probably as easy as just submitting it and getting it. If it were, then,
Everybody do it.
I was gonna say, and I'm sure our chief would be the first one to say, jump on it. He's offered us an awful lot to jump in for a lot of things.
let's take them one at a time. The draft for the billing rates,
Okay.
questions, comments.
Move approval?
Motion made and seconded, approve the billing rates. All those in favor? Cost recovery agreement.
Motion to approve the cost recovery contract.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Well, we'll at least get a chance to see it work for 1 year, because if at the end of that, then it's renewed. So I'm hoping that we'll hear all the
Right.
wonderful things that are happening.
Right.
On our behalf.
Michelle, are you signing off on that?
Yep.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
she is.
Apparently,
There you go.
I am.
Yes, she is.
Never mind. Don't sign here one.
Next on the agenda, acceptance of the criminal forfeiture funds. I'm sure anybody has any problems with that,
No.
questions?
Right?
Move approval that we accept the amount of $1,385 in forfeiture funds to be placed in the Sheriff's Department claim recovery, is it, or?
Asset
Asset
forfeiture.
Asset forfeiture account.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor? Next, marijuana ordinance fees. Everybody's had the draft and what we've discussed before.
This is no different than what we already reviewed, is it?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Make a motion to accept the marijuana ordinance licensing fees?
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor? Next one is two things to discuss, the town meeting timeline and also the donations request. Let's go through the timeline first. Anybody got any questions? It's basically I'm sure there's any change whatsoever from last year.
It's like a day, I
Yeah.
think.
Unacceptable.
I know. Well, that would have meant you met on Sunday or Friday or something.
These are all Sundays.
Change it. Couple Saturday nights where I'm in there.
There you go.
Anybody got any questions on that, Pat? The second part of that is going to be the donations, which we always discuss every year.
Well, this year's a little bit different though, isn't it? I mean, in the respect that we get some ARP funds and we're allowed to utilize some of those funds for these outside organizations that provide
Except that-
services to the community.
Don't we have to have those funds on the warrants, so that wouldn't be enough time, unless they're not expecting money until.
This budget's gonna be in the warrant, right?
You would have to have those on the warrant,
Okay.
so depending on how you did them, like if you did them under the ARPA piece, you probably wouldn't do them under the donation piece as well.
And we can do that under the
You
ARPA.
can, the only caution again on the ARPA funds, giving it to another entity is that you're still responsible for it, so.
Tracking it, right.
When you do your reports, you have to be able to get all that information, and if they don't do what they're supposed to on their end, the town's still responsible for it, so. Like, say you gave it to some fly-by-night donation group and they spent it
Right.
inappropriately and it had to be reimbursed to the federal government, the town of Jay would be responsible.
Was there a way that we could issue the funds out as they're supposed to be? I mean, it seems if we're taking the responsibility to make sure the funds are used correctly, then we would be, an example, if they were supposed to build a gazebo, we would pay out when it was done, and they would know that that's how it would work. And they would set up their contractors to do that, so you wouldn't have to worry about misuse of funds.
Right,
Could do it that way if we're gonna.
right. If you had a special project for a
Right.
certain entity that you were funding.
Right. You just wouldn't release the funds from our
Right.
account
Right.
until it went. As it was.
As far as donations, I mean, the biggest question is, do we open it up to everybody in the state, US, and every
And the
place
state.
else, or do we stick to what we basically have done last few years, which is basically the area?
And that means anybody just in the J market, not just the same ones every year.
So it's been done differently.
Right.
The last several years, for several years, it's been the ones that received funding previously. So that's why I put this on the back, so you saw what
I
was
know.
funded
I was
last
on the
year.
budget committee, I remember.
Yeah, so those, if it was done the way it's been done the last couple of years, those would be the only entities that you would accept donation requests from. Some towns have, they'll accept requests from anybody that has serves people in the town or has a presence in the town.
Right.
Some towns have that they will accept donations from those groups, but they only approve like one bucket amount. So say you had $20,000 and you split it however you split between them, however many people they serve, or
Right.
split it evenly between the groups. Different towns do it different ways.
So there's different criteria. We already have a criteria that was set up, and we're trying to look at a new criteria.
Well, the only criteria we have is that we've only looked at the ones that were done the year before. And the board does that every year. You decide what criteria you want to use. So if you want to do something different, I would just ask for guidance, really specific on what you're
Right.
doing, because I've already gotten 3 requests from people that aren't on the list from
Right.
last year. So usually when I get those requests in, depending on what the board's decided, I send a letter saying, you know, yes, your donation will be considered, or no, it won't,
Right.
and our budget meetings are at this time, you know, with that information, so.
One of my concerns with opening it up is basing it on having this extra money that is here this year might not ever be here again. And we give 5 more people a list, and now we're trying to figure out who we're gonna give money to a year from now, because we don't have any money to give to them. My personal opinion is to continue with the way we have it, the donations that we already have.
So, last year was or this year, I should say, was $15,650. That's what was budgeted?
That's what was budgeted, plus there was $2,750 that was for the AYS insurance that came from the tower fund.
Okay, okay. So if we have a budget, the budget committee, or the town budget says it's $16,000, $17,000. Doesn't matter if you have 6 people or 20 people, you're gonna split it up and do the best you can.
Well, it does in
Well-
a way, because the Spruce Mountain Insurance is a big chunk of that.
Yeah, and that one is what it is, like what their insurance is, what our
It is what
portion
it
is, we
is.
have to pay.
You know.
So that's not a donation then?
It is.
It's always been in the donation list. You could call it something else and fund it in another line, it's just, that's where it's historically been. But that's the town of Jay's portion of the Spruce Mountain insurance for the mountain.
A little more in Little Falls also.
So it's really a commitment the town has made
It
to
is.
the Spruce Mountain. That's not really a donation, that's a commitment, tax commitment.
Well, it's our donations from the town
It's our
for a
donation
commitment
from
to
the town.
taxes.
Okay. I personally feel to shut somebody out just doesn't seem fair.
Yeah,
Because there's a
but-
lot of people doing a lot for people in the town.
Well, we used to have a list there about twice as long as this, and we
Oh,
finally had 40 now.
3 or 4 times.
We were getting them from all over,
Yep,
you know.
yep.
And, so a couple of years ago, we had a donation request from a family that had a child that had cancer, that was like in the Bangor area.
Oh, no, I wouldn't, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking, what is helping, like these entities are right here in Jay.
Right. That's
And we don't want
why,
something outside of our area. These are Jay taxpayer dollars. They should go to Jay community organizations, nothing else. I mean, no,
Which is what
I-
that is.
and there's nothing else out here in our community that's all we have, helping our community is these entities, no other entities?
Well, you could go out and find all kinds of them, I'm sure.
well, I can give you an example of what we
Yeah.
get. So
Yeah,
like
that would
this year,
help.
so far this year, I can grab last year's book to tell you what other ones we got that we didn't fund, but I've gotten 3 so far. Kennebec Behavioral Health, Life Flight Foundation, and Androscoggin Home Health Care and Hospice.
Yeah, see, they do help a lot of people, that last one. Kennebec is a different county, that's not even us.
But they
They
said
serve
they
in
served.
They serve this
Yeah,
area?
It used to be up
They-
in Farmington, they took Evergreen.
Provided.
Oh, okay,
Ah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if it
thank
still
you.
does, that's what
Right.
it was last year.
Mental health and substance use disorder services to 61 J residents in 2021.
61 J residents?
Yeah.
And Lifeline is like what?
The helicopter.
Yeah, I know that, but what are they doing for the town? Because we already support them.
fly over.
We hope that Jay will consider joining the 240 towns who have supported this vital main service since 1998. 135 residents of Jay have been cared for with Lifeline, with 6 in the past year. Lifeline has made 28 scene calls to your community to support local fire rescue and EMS partners. So their request is for $1,213. Coming-back behavioral was for $300. And then Androscoggin. They don't have it broken out by town, I don't think. It doesn't have it broken out by town.
The reason I bring this up is I noticed in the budget last year, and I'm not gonna get into particulars, one account had $104,000 in their bank account. Did they really need our money last year? So I look at that and I say, maybe they didn't need it last year, maybe they don't need it this year, but maybe somebody else does in the next year. That's why I think
Well, and that's
shutting
why I
it
said,
down.
like, that you really need some good criteria that
Right.
you're going to go by, because if you ask, I don't know, Lifeline for how much money they have in their bank account.
Right.
How do you judge, you know, it's easy to judge our local ones based on that. I
Yeah.
think a lot easier than a big, you know, entity like a Lifeline or Androscoggin Home Care, like judging them based on that number, I don't know how you could.
Okay. Fair enough. Gotta ask the question.
Yeah,
too.
no, that's the
This is
hard
my
thing
first
about
time. It's
this,
very
is
hard,
like
'cause you
how
wanna
do you
give to
develop a
everybody.
criteria
Right.
that kind of meets everything?
Well, we used to do it at the county. We used to say that if you come to the town and ask for funds, that would be the only place you go to ask for funds. And those funds have to be expended within that town or within that county, when we did it at the county level. So the criteria that we used was, it restricts that those funds have to be spent in the town, if you will, and to help service residents who are in need. So criteria, the raised taxpayers' money, as you said,
Right.
in the town. And then the other thing is, we don't necessarily have to take a position on each one of these, unless you want to, which we have in the past. But I would suggest that you put it on the ballot and let the voters decide. We can make recommendations,
They
yea
do
or
anyways
nay.
if they want, right?
But I would be opposed to funding like American Red Cross or Androscoggin Health or Kennebec, whatever, unless they have a presence in the community and those funds are used to help the residents in the community. So as you've read off of that page, 61 people have been helped by that agency that you were talking about.
And we want
And
$300.
if they do, they do things like that and they have a presence, I would suggest that we at least allow them to ask that of the residents. Because the residents are the ones that are gonna make the determination. whether
Right,
this
so you
goes or not.
would have all of the requests come to the board and the budget committee, and then you would do your review of whether you think that it should go on the ballot. And then after it goes on the ballot, you would have to.
Yep. Once we feel comfortable that they're gonna meet the criteria that we're looking for, and that those funds have to be expended on J residents, or to like flight them out when you know what I mean? It has to show some criteria that those funds are being used for J residents. It's not helping a foreign country or another state or something like that. And I use Red Cross as an example, because I mean, it's a worldwide organization, I mean, but
Have access to.
that's a little bit beyond our grasp, I would say.
I agree with Tim, that we should just stick with our requested 21, 22. This last year, we went up 3 mils,
I know.
least keep it not going up anymore.
I was thinking to take the dollar amount and split it up a little bit more. It's more
Well, this
not
is
going
their
up on the
request.
budget. So these same people gonna come in for the same request this year? They
They
came in
might
last
come in
year.
more, they might come in for more,
Yeah, they might ask for it.
but usually they don't get any
They
more.
usually don't get more
No.
than,
Tri-Town, you know, they were very honest last year and didn't need it, but they,
Right.
you know,
This year
they should
they
have a
asked.
right to come back, in my opinion, this year. Because they could have just taken the money whether they needed it or not.
Yeah, well, they all got a whole big bunch of money last year from the federal government, so.
Yeah,
They're very
but I'm
honest
saying,
when they do
and they refused
Right.
the money.
Right, 'cause from the town, because they had other support. Tough one.
Anybody else got any direction or comments, motions?
Stick with the same list that we had last year.
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion. Same list of donations as we had done last year for the 21-22 year.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for the donations for the same list as requested, 21-22. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Do you want to approve the timeline as well?
Yep. Now the timeline, the annual town meeting. Make a motion to approve the timeline for 2022 annual town meeting as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor? Next on the agenda, the budget committee members, reappointments, which basically Carolyn Moss and Edward Mendoza are the two.
If I may, I have a volunteer for the committee this year. His name is Ed Walsh. He lives up at 2 Hillsdale Road in Jay. He's agreed to be on the committee.
The motion,
Do I need a motion to accept him?
do we have to,
Yeah, I mean, you can appoint him with the other ones if you want, or however you want to do it, thank you.
Make a motion that we appoint budget committee member Ed Walsh, Marilyn Morse, and Ed Mendoza.
Second.
motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
For 12/31/2023. Yes. Okay.
2 years.
Thank you.
huh?
So we have multiple vacancies on that board, so if anybody knows anybody, please encourage them. We'll put it out on our Facebook page that we're looking for people as well. One thing to kind of start thinking about is that the budget committee serves, for the select board, they're advisory to the board and advisory to the townspeople. So the bylaws of the budget committee are set by the select board. So that you guys set the number of members we have, you set how many people it takes to have a quorum, when we can't have a meeting, depending on the numbers. And unless we find more people to be on this committee, we may have a hard time getting a quorum. There's a few that are still on it that are shift work, so their availability, some years is not as easy for them to get there as others, so we really need some more members, or if we don't have them by our second meeting in December, I'll put this back on the agenda and you can kind of look at it again as to how you want to.
Yeah, so we may want to decrease to, I say 9, could be some other different number, but make sure we do
Have enough to have a quorum, because
Yeah.
you don't want to not have budget meetings because we don't have enough people there. Okay.
So can we update the For some reason, I didn't realize that there was that many vacancies, where I would have probably helped you up a little
Yeah,
bit
there's
more
a
for
lot.
you. Because I was looking on the website to see, and it
So there'll be 1, 2 regular member vacancies and 2 alternate vacancies after tonight. Actually, no, 3 regular members and 2 alternates. And we've got the timeline now, so feel free to show them the timeline so they
I
know
did.
what it's not a huge commitment
No,
as far
I
as
saw
meeting
that.
times.
yeah.
It's a good one if somebody is just interested in getting involved in town government,
That's
but
what
doesn't
it is.
really know
It's a
how
good
to get
first step.
involved. Exactly.
Good first step to get involved, I
Yeah.
agree.
You learn a
Who
lot.
would get away?
Yeah.
What's that?
Who would to get away?
No.
Dates of events, of meetings, November 22nd, Select Board meeting, 6 o'clock here at the town office. No executive session.
I move to go into executive session on MRS Title I, Chapter 13, Section 405, Section 680, for union negotiations, all, and for Section 6A, personnel issue employment.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor?